Okay, I'm going to attempt in this brief video to give a little quick outline into what a psychologically informed environment is about, as I see it. This is what is a psychologically informed environment, and what are the things. It's not exactly a how-to guide. It's more that if you recognise this picture, then I think you can say, "Oh yeah, we're doing this. Yeah, we're kind of you're on the road." It is a road. It is a journey. It's not being a psychologically informed environment isn't a place to be. It's a destination. It is a continuous journey of discovery, reflection, and so on. But if you can say, yeah, that fits. That describes what we're doing, then maybe you're on the road. So what I want to suggest is that to get a grasp on what a psychologically informed environment is like, you need to look no further really than your hand. I'm going to use this as a kind of simpler way of getting a picture. What really holds a psychologically informed environment, what supports the whole thing, is what we've called having a psychological model. This doesn't necessarily mean determinedly and deliberately and rigorously following any particular psychology theory. It sometimes helps to have a particular approach. That it certainly helps if all of the staff and all of your workers are thinking the same way, speaking the same language, describing problems, reacting to problems with a similar kind of understanding about where problems come from. But it doesn't need to be slavish adherence to any one particular rule book or a set of techniques. You can have a very eclectic model. You can pick and choose from different areas. And in fact, the model doesn't necessarily need to be psychological in the sense of research or academic psychology or any of the different therapeutic schools. Some of the places that I think work very much on a psychological understanding of what it is to be human often come from a religious background. In fact, some of the earliest radical psychiatry developments in this country came out of the Quaker movement, with their belief that there is something of God in everybody, and that one must treat and find that something of God. And that led to a philosophy of respect and appreciating and supporting the healthy parts of everybody, that was utterly revolutionary in psychiatry and around the Napoleonic era. So a psychological model is more a matter of how we try and understand each other as people. Research and academic psychology and a number of books and journals and training courses can certainly help, but they won't do it for you. It's much more about people thinking for themselves, using ordinary human empathy, informed as much as possible perhaps by insights and perhaps techniques even that you've found from one of the more therapeutic schools. But we've talked a lot about cognitive behavioural therapy. There's a certain amount of use of psychoanalytic thinking. There's a lot of interest in humanistic and positive psychology that's about finding people's strengths and what they find meaningful. Really, the relationship between people is the core of all of those therapies. So the first question is, do we have some kind of shared understanding that we're all working on about what a problem is and how you respond constructively, how you manage, how you deal with the problem? So that's having a psychological model. And that, I think, is the thing that supports and sustains everything that you may be doing. We can then look at things like what kind of building do you operate from? What kind of environment? The physical environment, the built environment. How could you design, could you even redesign to some extent the reception area, the sitting or the living room areas, or the social spaces that people move through on their way to and fro? Does the lighting, does the colour of the walls and could a lick of paint make a difference to whether this feels like a cared for place and something which is kind of comfortable to be in, or possibly even exciting to be in. Choose your colours according to the kind of mood that you want to create. Look at the posters you have on the walls. Do they sort of glaringly say, "We don't accept violence in this establishment," which really kind of tells everybody that you're expecting violence in this establishment? Do you have pictures? Do you have flowers? Do you have a fish tank? Do you have mood lighting that says, "Look, this is a comfortable space to sit and relax whilst waiting for your appointment," or some such? So give a little thought to the physical environment, to what it says and what it says you're saying. But in particular, there are some quite useful ideas and techniques that have been derived from other aspects of architecture that look at how people operate within a space and the pinch points, the conflict zones that are almost created unwillingly, unconsciously, by the way you've laid out the arrangement of the chairs and the tables, even. Certainly desks and so on just instantly convey a kind of businessy, work-related, professional kind of relationship that may or may not be what you want. So the second thing is to look at what we've called sometimes managing relationships. I prefer, myself, the phrase rules of engagement, the way that the structure of the organisation, the way that people respond, literally the rules of what you can and can't do, what's acceptable behaviour and what's not acceptable behaviour, and how your service responds when somebody acts or behaves in a way that is welcome, and how you respond when they behave in a way that's unwelcome. How strict are you? How clear are you on what the boundaries are? How clear should you be? After all, in someone's own home, the rules about what is and isn't acceptable aren't that clear. They're much softer and gentler. But in some situations, you may want to be very clear. What kind of sanctions do you have for inappropriate behaviour? Are they simply rejections, because people are used to rejection? Or do you have ways in which people can transgress but then get back on track, make it up to you? Do you have ways in which people can make reparation? In fact, do you have lots of opportunities for people to positively contribute and and put something of themselves into the way the service runs? Do you have volunteers? Do you have ex-service users? Do you have peer mentors showing people around, maybe helping out in the kitchens or the living room, or showing, or whatever? So look at the way that the service is operating. The obvious areas to look at then is what the demands on your staff are. And by staff, I'm talking not just about paid staff, but also volunteers, anybody who's putting their time into the running and the managing of the place that you operate. So service users, for example, if you do have a users committee that provides you with some feedback. Do you have ex-users on the staff? Do you have people making a positive contribution in some role? So when I talk about staff and staff training and staff support, I'm not just talking about people whose job it is. I'm talking about all the people who are contributing to making the place what it is. But what staff training do you have? What staff training might you need? Granted that the kind of problems that you are dealing with as a service may often involve people who've had pretty rough experiences in the past, who are often quite quick to expect a similarly bad and negative experience in the future. How are they going to see you? Is one of the key questions, I think. So what kind of training, what kind of handover of information would allow the staff of the night shift, say, to be well enough briefed on what's been going on in the past? Do you have a kind of supervision system? Do you have handover notes? Do you have sometimes team meetings where everybody can sit around and discuss what's actually been happening with some of the difficult situations that you've had to deal with? Do you have staff training from perhaps an external supervisor or possibly a psychotherapist or a counsellor who might provide some kind of additional input for the staff and not just for the service users? So those are the kind of staff training and support issues that need to be geared towards a recognition of what it is that your work really entails. As soon as you say we are working with people who've got quite traumatised lives and who bring with them an awful lot of that baggage, and that's what we've got to deal with, then you can start looking again at what staff training and support you need. And also you can start talking with your local commissioners about the extent to which this is a genuine, legitimate training need and support need for your staff, and therefore it needs to be in the budget and it needs to be costed and included. So we've got in the palm of your hand the psychological model. You've got the building that you can adapt for your purpose. You've got the rules of engagement. You've got staff training and staff support. The fourth little finger that helps to grip it in place is what we've called evidence generating practice. Do you gather data? Do you gather information? Because not all important information is necessarily in the form of data, quantifiable stats. You'll need that for your monitoring, you'll need that for your contract compliance. But what are the real, what's the really important feedback as to whether or not what you're doing is a success? What kind of softer information do you need to get from stakeholders, and of course most importantly from your own service users? What's the evidence that you're getting from them that what you're doing is effective? And can we gradually start to gather that evidence, not just so that your own particular service can learn, can be continuously checking itself out against whatever measure of what works you've come up with, but also to what extent can we as a sector for all homelessness services start to demonstrate that this is actually doing really important and valuable work. So gather data, start evidence generating practice that helps you to evaluate your own service, helps you demonstrate that you're evaluating your service, particularly when you're involving other stakeholders perhaps in getting feedback from them, but also helps us as an organisation, as a movement even, to start trumpeting what the successes of homelessness resettlement work in this country and elsewhere have actually been. So we've got a psychological model to support what you're doing. You've got the use of the building and the social spaces that it creates and whether they are creating the kind of atmosphere that you'd want. You've got the rules of engagement as to how you manage and work with the kind of difficulties you've got up. You've got staff training and support, and you're starting to get evidence of a range of kinds as to what's actually working. What then holds that? What makes that work? Well, what we have argued continuously is that the thing that really gets you a grip on this is reflective practice. It's the ability, the opportunity to think through, to talk through with others, particularly with your staff team, but wherever possible, of course, with your service users as well, and with other stakeholders and commissioners and so on. So you're continuously working and reworking and rethinking what's working, what can we learn from that incident? What can we learn from somewhere else that we went to visit where they were doing some brilliant stuff, and yeah, we'd like to do something like that here, and let's see how we could apply new ideas and new thinking and inspiration from somewhere else. So this, I think, is in the palm of your hand a simple way to think about and to bring together the issues in being a pie. I hope it works for you.